Here's something that might surprise you. Studies show that 95% of our daily thoughts are exactly the same as yesterday's thoughts. We're basically running on autopilot most of the time, which makes what happened to Jim Carrey even more fascinating.
That's such an interesting connection. What happened with Jim Carrey?
Well, while filming Man on the Moon, he completely lost himself in Andy Kaufman's character. Literally couldn't find his way back to being Jim for months afterward. It really shows how fragile our sense of self can be.
That reminds me of research showing that method acting can actually trigger temporary personality changes in performers. The brain literally creates new neural pathways.
That's exactly right. And here's what's fascinating. We all do this to some extent. Studies show that people switch between an average of 7 different social roles every day.
How does someone maintain their core identity with all these different roles?
Well, this is where meditation comes in. Research from Harvard showed that just 8 weeks of mindfulness practice can actually increase grey matter in areas of the brain associated with self-awareness.
But it's not always easy to maintain these practices in our busy lives.
You know what's interesting? The average person spends 47% of their waking hours thinking about something other than what they're currently doing. That's nearly half our lives spent on autopilot.
That's a staggering statistic. No wonder we struggle with self-awareness.
Right, and here's where it gets really interesting. Studies have shown that people who practice regular self-reflection are 31% more likely to achieve their goals and report higher levels of life satisfaction.
Well, that certainly makes a case for taking time to check in with ourselves.
Exactly. And when we look at successful people, like Bill Gates, who takes 2 think weeks every year just for reflection, we see this pattern over and over.
So what you're saying is that self-awareness isn't just some new age concept, it's actually backed by science.
Exactly. The latest neuroscience research shows that self-awareness activates regions in the prefrontal cortex that are crucial for decision-making and emotional regulation.
That's fascinating. And it explains why mindfulness has become so popular in corporate settings.
Oh yeah, and get this, companies that implement mindfulness programs see an average 20% increase in productivity and a 28% reduction in stress levels.
Those are impressive numbers. It really shows how personal growth affects every aspect of life.
And here's something else to consider. Studies show that 85% of people who achieve extraordinary success have some form of regular reflective practice.
That makes me think about what you said earlier regarding fear holding people back.
Well, research from the University of California found that acknowledging our fears actually reduces their intensity by up to 50% in the brain's fear center, the amygdala.
So by facing our fears head-on, we're literally rewiring our brains.
Precisely. And when we combine this with community support, the effects are even more powerful. Studies show that people with strong social connections are 40% more likely to overcome personal challenges.
It's amazing how everything connects: self-awareness, community, personal growth.
You know what's really interesting? Ancient wisdom traditions have been teaching these connections for thousands of years. Modern science is just catching up.
That really puts things in perspective. We're not reinventing the wheel, are we?
Not at all. We're just finding new ways to understand and apply timeless wisdom. And that's what makes this journey so exciting. There's always more to discover about ourselves.
Well, this has given me a lot to think about.
And that's exactly what we hope for. Because when we start thinking differently about ourselves, we start acting differently in the world. And that's how real change begins.
Sounds like a perfect place to wrap up our discussion.
Indeed. Remember everyone, self-awareness isn't just a luxury, it's a necessity for thriving in today's world. The science proves it, and the wisdom of ages confirms it.